Hello, viewers, and welcome to the latest episode of The Huddle. I'm Las Vegas correspondent Brian Joseph, and I'm here with Jacob Fortinsky, the co-founder and CEO of the sports betting exchange Novig. Jacob, thank you for joining us. To start, can you tell us about your background and how your professional experience led you to co-found Novig?
Sure. So I'm fairly young, so I don't have the most extensive professional experience, but I graduated from Harvard a couple of years ago where I studied philosophy, political science, and economics. As a child, I was very mathematically inclined, always thought I would go into financial trading or get a PhD in something. I got to college, decided to sort of get more into politics, worked on a couple of campaigns, then went into banking, worked at a hedge fund. And then my senior year of college, decided to start Novig. Sort of on the side, was very serious, playing poker. I'm trading on prediction markets. Got into sports betting. Saw some serious problems with the industry and set out to build what I viewed to be a better solution, a better model, and started the company with a close friend of mine, whom I met at school, and we've been working on the company for the last 3 years.
It's a very Facebook-esque origin story, working on it while you're at Harvard.
Well, yeah, we graduated though, so at least our parents, my parents forced me to. I took a semester off actually during COVID when I was starting to brainstorm on the idea, and I wanted to not go back, but I was forced to. So.
Well, hey, you at least got that degree.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Novig. It's a sports betting exchange, not a sports book. In the US, how popular are exchanges versus traditional sports books?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's very early days in terms of US sports betting in general, but especially with regards to exchanges. As I'm sure you know, and many of your viewers know, sports betting exchanges have been quite popular in Europe for some time. But they're not really much of a thing in the US. I think the average sports bettor in the US doesn't even know what an exchange is, let alone know that there are sports betting exchanges that they can bet on. There are a couple other competitors in the US, there are a couple in Canada, but I think what we're trying to build is not necessarily just the best exchange. We're trying to build the best sports betting app, period. And we think building it on an exchange platform is by far the best way to do that from both a company sort of profitability perspective, as well as from a user experience perspective. We just went live in Colorado this week, which is our first market, very excited about. And the idea is basically, to prove that the model works there and then expand into a dozen or so other states next year. I think we're differentiated from both other exchanges, but also from other sports betting apps writ large in that, one, we're really trying to introduce the most cutting edge financial exchange technology from the world of Wall Street and other financial exchanges. And my co-founder worked as a high frequency trader previously. And I think much of our team is comprised of people with similar backgrounds. And I think we're really trying to enable programmatic trading, sort of the future of what we view to be the financialization of sports betting. I think you see large sports betting operators move away from trying to compete on price. They're trying to increase their margins, not decrease them. And I think as that happens, the differentiation between exchanges like ours and the leading sports betting operators will become more apparent to users. And I think the second novel thing about what we're doing is we're really shifting the fundamental business model of the industry away from one that charges everyone indiscriminately, whether that be through a VIG, sort of the cut, the juice taken by the house, or commissions, which is how other exchanges generate revenue. Instead, we're making it entirely commission-free for casual bettors. So you and a buddy each put up $100 on a game, winner gets $200. We don't take a cut from that. And we generate revenue by charging market makers, institutional traders, professional bettors. So essentially charging the top 1 or 2% of earners on our platform rather than charging everyone indiscriminately. So basically we can say to our users, we only make money to the extent you make money, whereas all other sports betting apps make money to the extent you lose money.
Well, that is a big differentiating factor there. For people that might be unfamiliar with Novig and exchanges in general, can you just sort of walk our listeners and viewers through how exactly Novig works?
Yeah. So, well, first, I guess before I explain how Novig works, I'll first just say that when we went live in Colorado, essentially as a low VIG sports book, we're rolling out some of the exchange features in the coming weeks. So what I'm about to explain is sort of how it'll work in 3 to 4 months from now. But the idea is basically we are enabling all users on our platform to not just be price takers, but to be price makers. So instead of just saying these are the odds, take it or leave it, you can actually say, oh, I want to offer this price. So it sort of works the same way NASDAQ works or eBay works. You go on to, let's say, eBay, you see you're buying a pair of AirPods. You can buy instantly at 120 or sell instantly at 90. If you don't like either of those prices, you can say I'm willing to sell for 100 or I'm willing to buy for 110 and hope that your offer gets taken. So that's essentially the same type of experience that we're introducing to sports betting. You can basically think of it as we're empowering everyone to be their own house. So instead of saying, should I take minus 110 on this side or minus 110 on that side, you can actually be the one to say, I'm willing to take minus 105 on either side and just collect a spread the same way the sportsbook does. And we're basically creating public price discovery. So it's the same way the stock market works. The more people buy one side, price goes up. More people sell or buy the other side, price goes down. So it's not really some backroom sportsbook that's pricing these markets. We just allow our users to basically determine the price of every single market.
That's fascinating. And I know for a well-versed sports bettor that's going to be appealing. How do you sort of educate the more casual fan to what you're describing? Because I can imagine my buddies, trying to explain that to them and they'd be totally lost.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So the first thing I would say is that, the sharp bettors, the price sensitive bettors are going to find the best lines wherever they exist. They're already line shopping, and many of them are limited from the large sports books, which is actually sort of part of the origin story of Novig. Was I saw lots of my friends getting limited by sports books simply for making money. So we're trying to provide an outlet for profitable bettors to bet without limit. But for the casual bettor, I think, we're really trying to not rely too much on education. I think what we're trying to say to the sports bettors is we are the first and only commission-free sports betting app. We are providing you the same experience you're getting from all of the large operators, except we're giving you a better price. So whether you're losing money or you're making money, we're putting 1% to 3% back in your pocket per bet. At least that's the goal. And with the beauty of exchanges is that you have tremendous network effects. So the more people we have using our platform, the tighter the spreads will become. My co-founder Kalechi likes to say trading begets trading, that when we have more people on the platform, the tighter the spreads become, the more we're differentiated, the more future users we attract, and so on until our spread, the equivalent of a bid-ask spread, is effectively zero, where you in the super liquid market like the Super Bowl, you can have minus 101 or minus 100.5 on each side, so that instead of paying 8.5% per bet, which is sort of the average VIG in the industry, you're paying sub 2 or 3%.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I can see the experienced bettor, the sharp bettor, as you put it, really, sinking their teeth into this. But the casual guys, the guys I drink beer with, I have a hard time believing that they wrap their mind around all that. They're so used to the sports book experience of just these are the odds and these are my options. But you said you're not really going to be relying too much on educating your users, at least initially, on what you guys offer. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, like I said, we're really just trying to be the best sports betting app, period. We're trying to have better prices, better user experience, better, withdrawal, better deposit, better customer experience, customer support, and so on. So I think, really, it's not like we want all of our users to even know we're an exchange. We want people to just download it because they're like, oh, I heard this app is awesome, that they have these cool rewards and contests and competitions, and they have great odds. And it's not like we necessarily need people to be an 100% believer in exchanges. We want people to download us because for the same reason they choose X sports betting app over Y sports betting app.
Gotcha. It sounds like you're trying to hit it from all angles. The really deeply experienced and also the casual fun bettor too. That's what's really smart. As I understand it, you have a pretty well-known investor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky to have raised from a number of pretty well-known investors. I think the average sports bettor probably is most familiar with Joe Montana, who's an investor of ours. It's been a pleasure to get to know him and to talk to his family and so on. That was a really cool experience. And yeah, also, our primary, our biggest investor is Lux Capital, a very well-known New York-based venture capital firm. We went through Y Combinator, which is a startup accelerator program, which has incubated many notable companies like Reddit and Coinbase and Airbnb. So really got to talk to, an incredible range of advisors and mentors like Sam Altman and, the Twitch founders, and Paul Graham is an investor of ours. So, I think we have taken somewhat of an outsider approach. We chose to raise money from more typical Silicon Valley investors rather than people from within the industry for a number of reasons. I think we have deep respect for lots of people in the industry, in various corners of the industry, but I do think that we strongly believe that the industry has to evolve in a number of key ways. And the best way to do that was to, I think, raise from people whose visions of the industry were aligned with our own and were more comfortable taking a contrarian perspective.
How did you get hooked up with Joe Montana?
Sort of a funny story, but I was at this barbecue in San Francisco. I met Paul Graham, who's sometimes referred to as the father of Silicon Valley, and he's personal friends with Joe, and was able to make that introduction. I was a little starstruck meeting him, but ultimately, I was a little less nervous actually pitching him than others, because I knew I sort of, going into the meeting, I sort of knew that he was interested. So, it was a fun experience, but I sort of had to take off my sports fan hat and put on my founder hat, and keep my emotions in check.
I mean, you in my book, he's still the GOAT of quarterbacks. So I consider me impressed.
I grew up like a diehard Patriots fan and Michigan fan, and even more than those, as diehard Tom Brady fan. I had a fat head and everything. So I think I have to keep my opinion to myself as to who's the GOAT now. I'd say they're two GOATs.
Fair enough. Now you mentioned earlier that you recently got started in Colorado. What are your plans for the Centennial State? You described it a little bit, starting off with a low vig, moving to your no-vig model. Kind of lay out for us, your timelines, your plans, that sort of thing.
Sure. So so right now, in order to provide liquidity to actually offer odds on our platform, you need a license with the state. You need a vendor major license, and I would say the regulators are very open and excited by the prospect of fully legalizing exchanges. But because it's such a new and innovative type of wagering, they're in the process of drafting and approving new regulations to apply to exchanges, which will hopefully pass within the next 2 or 4 months. This has been sort of like an 8-month-long process working with them, and I think I'm very happy with where we're at, and sort of the status of those conversations. That will sort of pave the way for us to really open up all of the aspects of our app that we've built. But there are a number of things. So right now we just have total spreads and sides for the major markets, so college football, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB. We're rolling out college basketball next week, tennis and soccer within the next 2 or 3 months. We're going to be the first exchange, hopefully, to have parlays, which is something that we've built, which we're excited about. Same game parlays, player props, team futures. We're going to have contests similar to, like Circus Survivor or other more peer-to-peer, head-to-head competitions. Of course, this is all subject to regulatory approval, but I think we really, have assembled quite a sharp team, and we're excited by a number of things internally and the ones I mentioned, those are sort of only the tip of the iceberg in terms of things we've built, and can't disclose everything, but I think we really have some quite novel ways of betting. We can have exotic derivatives of certain types of markets, and some other pretty exciting stuff. And we're in the process of onboarding different market makers, so we'll have even more institutional capital, higher limits, really trying to be the primary, really the clearinghouse of liquidity in the sports betting space, where you have other sports books even offloading their risk onto our exchange, and really pioneering some B2B solutions as well. But I would say that we really have quite a maximalist view of markets. We really want to allow people to bet on whatever they want to bet on. And the challenge with exchanges is that you need to have a critical mass of people. You need to make sure you have enough activity. So we'll sort of start off slow in the areas that most people are interested in betting, and then as we get more users and more volume, and we expand to more states in the coming months, we'll start to offer more and more products. And yeah, I mean, I think we believe we're really can go head to head with anyone in the industry. Obviously, we're small and we're young, but I think that sort of the proof is in the pudding, and I think that we'll be able to have better prices and compete on all the other aspects that matter to users.
You mentioned other states, and you mentioned earlier your plans to expand to other states. I don't want to put you in a position where you're revealing any proprietary information, but can you talk a little bit about the other states you're looking at, your plans to expand beyond Colorado?
Yeah, we have. Well, I don't want to say any specific states just in case those don't happen, but we're actively looking at about a dozen states and also a couple other markets outside of the U.S. And I think right now we're pretty heads down, just focused on Colorado. I think if we're able to prove that it works there and attract a sizable chunk of the betting population there, then I think it'll be that'll really streamline the process of expansion. So I think we'll hopefully get into another couple markets by the end of this year, and then next year really get in, change gears to focus on geographic expansion.
How did you decide to start in Colorado?
Well, I'd say that Colorado is a state that, first of all, has an amazing sports culture. Two, there was a sort of regulatory pathway in terms of market access, as well as openness to exchange wagering. And also, Colorado has a number of price-sensitive bettors who I think really are quite eager for a platform like the one we're building. And lastly, I'd say Colorado just has a culture of innovation. There are a number of areas where they're the first to legalize X or Y, and I think that it's very business friendly. People are excited to try new products, especially ones that I think are bringing something new to the table. And I just coincidentally, I also had the idea while I was skiing in Colorado, so it sort of felt full circle and kind of fitting to start there. And I mean, it's unfortunate. We have people all the time, hitting our line, being like, "When are you coming to Illinois or New Jersey or wherever?" And I wish I could say, "Oh, we'll be there in 3 to 6 months," but as I'm sure you and your listeners know, it's not such an easy process to expand geographically, and it's something that we're trying to take lessons from people who I think spent all of their budget on expanding and do it in sort of a smart and cautious way.
Well, that makes sense, and it's certainly difficult to predict how long it's going to take to get approval in one state versus another. There's obviously a lot going on in the sports betting world in the United States right now. You got daily fantasy, you got traditional sports books, we've got new entrants like you, we've got other flavors of sports betting apps. Where do you see this all heading?
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball. I do have some strong takes on different aspects of the market. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the daily fantasy world. I think that's where you really see the most innovation. I personally, I'm an active user on a couple of those platforms, but I do think that the overwhelming majority of sports bettors are more interested in betting on teams than on specific players. And so as a category, of course, there are regulatory challenges in that space, but on the whole, I really do think that their market cap is pretty capped, just given the sort of niche nature of betting on players. I think that it's with traditional sports books. Yeah, obviously with Fanatics and ESPN Bet entering the market, you have a lot of people willing to spend lots of money. So I do think some of the second or third tier sports books are probably going to exit or wind down operations in certain ways. But I think at a high level, I think there's still very little product differentiation in among sports books. The analogy I like to use is it's like deciding which casino to go play blackjack in. It's like the same game wherever you go. Your decision comes down to convenience or where your friend is telling you to go, but it's not like you're really just deciding based on the actual merits of the game. And what we're trying to do is change the fundamental rules of the game, provide more value to our users, provide a more fun betting experience, provide a more social betting experience. And so I really do think that the best product will win out. I think there's only a certain amount of time that you can, spend hundreds of millions of dollars on, these free bets and bonuses and promos. And I think when everything shakes out, it will be very difficult for sportsbooks to compete with exchanges. We're basically going to cut out the middleman, allow people to bet directly against one another, assume no principal risk ourselves, so that there's less operational overhead, and it's just a much cleaner business model. And it's sort of like the same way that taxi companies aren't able to compete with Uber and Lyft. I think it's going to be a similar type of transformation in the sports betting industry. Whether that happens in the next 3 years or the next 15 years, it's sort of hard to predict, but that's where I believe the market's headed.
That's interesting. You mentioned your respect for people in the industry, and you also mentioned you wanted to be user friendly and appealing to users in general. I'm just sort of curious. I mean, is there any particular sports betting exchange, whether it's in the United States or elsewhere, that you admire, and why?
Well, I'd first say that I respect for anyone who's innovating in this space. The other exchanges, the two in New Jersey, I know their founders and have a lot of respect for them and like them personally, and all the European exchanges as well. We've definitely looked at Betfair and SmartGets as examples in certain regards, whether that's with pricing or UI UX or whatever it is, strategy with regards to market making or revenue models. I also just have a lot of respect for people who don't just copy other people's prices, who sort of directionally are opposed to the consensus view and who do pricing internally. And I think, of course, there's certain price shops that are much sharper than others, but I think anyone that is not just looking at where their peers are at and copying their pricing, but are basically have confidence in their own models, whether that's Circa or Pinnacle or whoever. I think those are the people that we're really trying to emulate. And it's sort of another division of our company that we have our own internal quant research and our own internal trading teams, so that we're not outsourcing the same way a lot of other companies are. And obviously it's a higher risk play, but I think the people I have the most respect for are people that are willing to take big risks to try to change the status quo.
It's fascinating. You guys have really clearly thought this through very deeply. Jacob, thank you for your time. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. It was a pleasure being on.